In the shadows of the allure of Abuja, Nigeria's federal capital city, is the repulsion that fills the heart of the original inhabitants of the city, who, like society rejects, dwell in absolute squalor.
We receive the message with feelings that, of course, government is coming closer to us. And the other side of the coin is that he discovered that places that were even resettled were sharpishly carried out.
We are promised from the initial stage, those who pick us to here, that we are going to have a social amenities like road, mosque, church, and many things. Even the schools were not being given as what they said.
Fellow Nigerians,
it all started with this pronouncement in a national broadcast by former head of state Murtala Mohammed on the morning of February 3rd, 1976, announcing the creation of a new capital for Nigeria just a few days before he was brutally killed.
The decree did says that the original inhabitants will be adequately compensated, but those that decide to relocate will be supported by the government to relocate to any part of the country that they so wish at the expense of the government. But 47 years down the line, we are yet to see the government fulfilling that solemn promise.
It is not clear whose notion it was that the new capital, founded after exploring many other options, was a virgin land, a distasteful phrase with which the people feel the authorities have been carrying on in dealing with their matter, despite established fact that over 450,000 households belonging to 9 tribes and 17 chiefdoms whose forefathers had lived in the FCT since the 12th century were occupying the space as at the time of the creation of the new capital.
That territory for over 600 years has been an extension of historical kingdoms, the Kokora Kingdom, the Habe Kingdom, who have had the territory governed by pre-colonial empires that are known to history. And these nationalities, we know them, the Gwari, the Koro, the Bassa, the Nupe, there are about 9 of them.
With Murtala Mohammed out of the way, the succeeding regime of Olusegun Obasanjo continued where his predecessor stopped, but failed to accept the sum of 2.8 billion naira proposed to relocate and resettle the affected people then by the Justice Akinola Aguda panel, which carried out the groundwork in the new capital.
Till today, 2.8 billion naira as of 1976 up to today is still hanging on the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But the Nigerian government continue to operate and work on FCT as if the entire FCT is truly a virgin land.
As at that time, the federal government, the budget, that is the national budget, was just about 400 million naira. Meaning that it will take about 7 years budget to compensate the original inhabitants. So the context I'm trying to give it is that when they now declare that Abuja is no man's land, who were they deciding? Where were they talking about compensation?
Nobody emphasized the consequences of their failure to relocate everybody before beginning anything. They didn't think it was a serious matter.
That would appear a very costly mistake in dealing with the matter. Less than 30% of the affected people we gathered were relocated from their lands, and the remaining huge percentage of the landowners remained in the capital without any clear plan or pronouncement on their status.
What one of their leaders told us was that when the military came, they were armed. The people were afraid that, look, instead I will listen to them, or we will be decimated. So they told them, look, some of you want to stay on this land, move to this side. Some of you want to be relocated, move to this side. Those who moved to the left side that wanted to stay on the land were seen as rebels. So the first thing the government did was to evacuate those people by force.
Subsequent regimes, including the Shagari government, made some efforts to put things right and correct the mistake of the military boys, but before the effort could materialize, the military struck again and it was back to square one.
Shagari did a wonderful work and corrected that mistake there and then. What he did, he now divided the 8,000 square kilometers of land that Murtala declared as a virgin land by creating the federal capital city that we have as it is today. And he built the state status that this quantum of people will now have our own state, and he built the secretariat in Gwagwalada.
And what happened to Nigerians in the hand of government happens to the natives. So no seriousness, no commitment to any public policy issue, no serious budgeting, no national plan item that will have affected them.
Some of those relocated were taken to nearby settlements and states where their terms of resettlement were most times not clearly defined and agreements reached not honored even decades later.
Places like Ushapa and Jugo, places like New Wuse, today they are languishing in abject poverty, no adequate compensation. Today, even when they moved them to such places, there were no proper provision for them to do as farmers, peasant farmers. There was no land for them to fall back.
This place is a resettlement town.
Adamu Shekwanya is 33 years old, born in the year 1990 when his parents and other Gbagi community members were relocated from their original land in Meitama and Kukwaba to Kubwa.
Were resettled from the Meitama, inside town, the Kukwaba, inside town, where the National Stadium is located, down to this place.
It tells a story of pain and anguish of a people who feel betrayed by a country that they sacrifice their land and part of their heritage for its unity.
Since we were located or resettled from town down to this place, we have not felt the presence of government at all. As we are being resettled from that place down to this place, we won't pay anything like water bill. We will not pay for electricity. You understand? In fact, they promise to provide us with worship center. They promise things like graveyard, which we are not providing. In fact, all these things I've mentioned, none was done.
They are traditionally a farming community, but practicing their trade has been difficult since the land spaces they got when they moved in here were barely enough to provide them with adequate shelter.
Some of us that struggled to buy farmland. You see this mountain we are talking of, most of us were farming behind it. But because of this insecurity problem, none of us is able to go there again to farm.
From Ushafa to Durumi and other places within the capital city where the people have been struggling to cohabit with the splendor that Abuja has come to represent, the lack of integration and feeling of apprehension and rejection by the people are palpable.
We are suffering. We are being marginalized from so many things, I'm telling you.
When they are not looking over their shoulders because of the threat of eviction from their homes, they're lamenting lack of access to public facilities built on their land, like this water dam.
This dam, said to be the biggest water dam supplying Abuja, the FCT and its environs, with public water supply, is situated in Ushafa, a community made up of mostly Gbagis, who are some of the original inhabitants of Abuja. But despite the presence of this dam in their community, they claim that public water supply to them is a rare occurrence.
We are the one that give the land for this dam to be here, but we don't have water. We don't have water. Can you give somebody water today? In a 3 months, you give somebody water, 1 week, 2 weeks, you will not see the water, then you not say you have water.
The greatest fear of the people here in Durumi 3 is clearly expressed on the bills posted on the walls in the home of the community leader. They are not sure when the next bulldozer will invade their community and start pulling down the remaining of their property already marked for demolition in the constant expansion of the capital city, which gives little or no consideration for them.
Are we actually being integrated and carried along? When some of us are pursued. Here in my village, Durumitri, I can tell you that there's a company that has sued us to court. We have a litigation. Yes, over that. Where we stay is a land that has been allocated to them. The case is still ongoing. They have come, they have mobilized people to come and mark our houses, have coined names, have coined issues against us, has given us bad names. There are criminals here, so they are coming to pull our houses. Our house, if you had come in here, you see that demolition was carried out here. Where we go for social gathering, as market, as where our people will go and enjoy themselves. Such places were pulled down. We ask, what is actually the
Sabon Wuse or New Wuse is another resettlement community in nearby Niger states. About 5 communities were moved here between December 1979 and January 1981. It is a community reeking with poverty, surviving in the most difficult ways. Bad roads, limited or no access to electricity, limited land for cultivation, and lack of access to potable water.
That we are told we are going to have a social amenities like road, mosque, church, and many things that is social, like water and many things, as I've said. Even the schools were not being given as what they said. And they promised us to upgrade us in a royal way. That is chieftaincy. And up to now, we are nothing but nothing.
These are the houses the authorities built for them then. A 2-bedroom mud structure without provision for toilet facilities. Muhammadu Agwaganje inherited this from his late father. It is already dilapidated, he tells us.
As you can see, some of the houses built by the government are already going down. Our people were also cheated in the aspect of payment of entitlement. They were cheated, they were shortchanged. Our people died out of frustration because of the cheating and the deprivation.
The deprivation suffered by the people is not only socio-economical, but political and cultural. Only about 25% of the total land taken from them was compensated for.
At that time, the highest point of money that maybe a figure of person will get it is not more than 1,000.
Who will believe that the Transcorp Hilton Hotel, the land that is situated, the owners, the original owner, were only compensated with 20 naira. The Aso Rock Villa, the entire land that is situated is a farmland that belonged to some families. The compensation was 20,000 naira. And the owners of those land have been driven to poverty, driven out of sight from the side of political class.
I want to also let you know that when the military was in power, a lot of lands were allocated by military fiat to individuals and corporate organizations that are now worth billions of dollars on the land that originally belonged to certain people.
The multidimensional political exclusion they suffer also makes it difficult for them to push their cause. For instance, the executive and legislative authorities available to the average Nigerian citizen are absent for them, as the Nigerian constitution is silent on the status of Abuja, which the document states shall be treated as if it were one of the states of the Federation in section 299. When the rest of Nigeria is busy voting for state governors and state assembly representatives, Abuja Indigenes simply stay at home. With a population of about 4 million, The FCT has only one senator and 3 representatives in the National Assembly, while a state like Bayelsa, that is smaller in population, has 3 senators and 5 representatives in the same assembly.
Nigerian constitution is the #1 document that has aged us out and has been accepted by all Nigerians as a working tool by every successive government.
When they are looking for jobs, there are some jobs that to be stated there that they tell you which state you come from. They ask you which state you come from. Even in terms of admission. Until recently that we are now talking about FCT. Before you, because you don't have a state, you are sidelined. And that means you are criminalized. You are not going to go and claim Niger State or Nasarawa State or even Kaduna State. That's not originally your own state. But because you don't have a state, you are compelled to go and pick some of these states.
Even admission policy. I followed one, Jessica Dunlady. She got more than 270 in 2019-2020 UMTE to read law in ABU. She also did very well in post-UMTE test, but they didn't admit her. The following year, she took law to read law again at the University of Abuja. This Jessica Danladi I'm talking about is a native of Abuja, is a Gwariga. She also took University of Abuja, believing that maybe locality or catchment area or any of those criteria, they didn't have any criterion at the University of Abuja for the natives of Abuja.
The United Nations describes the indigenous peoples as holders of unique languages, knowledge systems, and beliefs, and possess invaluable knowledge for sustainable development. But the indigenous peoples of Abuja are worried that their beliefs and identity are fast disappearing with their lands. Some of their sacred and cultural heritage sites are falling, and more are still falling to the expansion, like the Garki Hill in the heart of the city.
We are on a climb to the Garki Hill here in Abuja. It's a very, very important monument for the people of Garki who make up part of the original inhabitants of Abuja. Here, I'm told, is where 16 of the 17 kings that have reigned in the kingdom are buried.
The founder of Gariki, who was a farmer and a hunter at the same time, it was during his hunting expedition that he discovered this place to be fertile for farming. And on climbing up the hill, he also discovered the place is good for hunting.
The authorities have already allocated some part of the land to private individuals for development, and that heightens the fears of the people that their history buried deep here will soon be lost to the commercial interest of strangers.
My greatest fear is that in a very short time, unless an action or a pragmatic action is taken, our history, tradition, and culture will be eroded. Because so far, I am saddened that our culture, we visit this place annually. We perform our rites annually. Now we cannot do that.
If you go to other climes where people are talking about indigenous history, some of the things that even bring in revenue, these sites are sites for tourism. There are lots. Unfortunately, one of them is in Kubwa. But unfortunately, a market has been built on that place. It used to be a sacred burial site.
The FCT is also rich in many natural resources, some of which are being explored by individuals and groups without recourse to the Convention of Biological Diversity and other international instruments that Nigeria is a signatory to, thereby damaging the Abuja ecosystem.
For instance, the Convention of Biological Diversity says that before you go into local communities to exploit resources, there must be prior there must be prior consent, prior informed consent of indigenous communities. This does not happen. Individuals will just get license from Ministry of Mines and then go to these communities with armed men and then begin to take their resources right in their own eyes.
These are communities where massive quarrying is going on, and they have existing CDAs that they have signed. But when we did the analysis of those CDAs, we found that they didn't capture the culture, they didn't capture so many things, and some of those people in the communities were not even aware of the importance of that document that they have signed.
The realization of the exclusion they have suffered over the years has spurred some actions, including street protests and litigations to seek redress for some of the unjust actions of the state against them. But the challenge is still as enormous.
Declarative judgment was given in 2018 on this Musa Baba Panya versus federal government. It was not reported. I collected the judgment from Musa, the late Musa Panya now, and I now used it to write a column like this, that justice at last for FCT Indigenes. That was the first time it just got to public space. It was not reported.
They had to wait another 5 years to reap the benefit of that court judgment when the new government of Bola Tinubu nominated and appointed one of them into Nigeria's federal cabinet for the first time ever. Some civil society organizations like the Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education and MacArthur Foundation have played a significant role in supporting the struggle of the people, not just by bringing up their plight for discussion, but also in helping to properly channel their grievances and organize them to address some of the socioeconomic challenges that they face daily.
These people had been very, very peaceful, the way they organize themselves, and that is why our organization, Resource Center for Human Rights and Civic Education, was so interested in supporting their effort. The government themselves, who had more or less the beneficiary of the land acquisition, they have never one day sit down to think, to say that these people, what we are doing to them is wrong. If these people decide that tomorrow they want to do otherwise, of course we have seen what is happening in Niger Delta. We have also seen a number of places. Look at what IPOB is doing today. Irrespective of what, is a major concern to the government and the economy of the country.
I, in person, I feel as if I'm not in existence. Because, take example, in Nigeria, FCT is the only, state that we are stateless.
The indigenous people's claim over ancestral land is a global phenomenon which has compelled the UN to adopt the process of dealing with the problem. The global body came to the conclusion that unless their problem is properly resolved, conflict resolution and peace building will be very difficult. Similar situation had been experienced in Brazil, Australia, among other areas, which present a good lesson for Nigeria on how to handle the discontent of the Abuja Indigenes.
We have had this unbroken democracy as a testimony for the past 24 years. 4 years, our assembly, this session of assembly since 1999. So they have been having a senator, they have been having members of House of Representatives, they have been having municipal area council is very powerful, very influential, and they have access to revenue. What have they actually done? Let us ask them questions.
Beyond the nomination of an indigene to the federal cabinet, we sought to know how the government plans to address all the grievances of the people. But of course, the government is new, and the minister in charge is pleading for time.
We came on board and we said, look, we are going to make sure those things that have not been done before will be done.
But solving the challenges only requires the political will to review some of the issues already on the template, such as creating a proper political structure like a mayoral council that can adequately take care of the interests of the people, tweaking the right sections of the 1999 Constitution to properly determine their status as citizens of Nigeria, while also immediately looking into the issues of their compensation and the daily threat of eviction in some of the communities.
We are asking the federal government to have us at heart. The way they are interested in developing the federal capital city, they should also be interested in getting us empowered.
We are trying to use it to get the court judgment to stop the government from their expansion. We are approaching it in a different dimension.
Part of the solution is to have a democratic structure that will get us to have the mayor of Abuja and not the minister of the Federal Capital Territory.
This is a global problem, and we must learn from best practices. You know, in Brazil, the government just paid about $30 million to indigenous communities because they cannot just cope with the upheaval that was coming. And we are saying that there are so many international instruments. We have the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People.
The original inhabitants of Abuja, though, fear that their history is threatened, but they are doing their best to pass some account of it to their children, who are now perfecting the art of asking questions about their heritage and the injustice of the past. This is why Nigeria must frontally address their concerns now to avoid breeding a future rebellious movement in the FCT, its center of unity. Tokumbo Oyetunji, Arise News, Abuja.